We've got a problem. The Vikings look like they're going to be good.
Really?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, I know
I,
you come in here just wanting to bash Kirk Cousins, but that's not enough, dude. This team
I
looks good. Not last
there's
season. They look like they're going to be good though.
yeah, I mean they can look like they're gonna be good. I do agree that they had their offense looks all right. I was a little too harsh on Kirk Cousins, and you going into last season, you were a little too harsh on Justin Jefferson. But their schedule looks rough for them, man. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll talk about that. All right.
Okay,
Um I'll go first. I'm
all right.
so glad that fans will be back at games next season. I mean, it's just annoying looking back and watching, just looking at players celebrate and just nobody being in the stands. Um, Easy completions in this offense are great. I mean, that's great for any offense, but that's basically the reason why we're willing to question Kirk Cousins at all. The Packers literally run cheese plays in the red zone, and I just have to point it out because they do it against the Vikings too. And it's only to juice Devontae Adams' touchdown numbers, and I hate it because it's just like you literally. I mean, anybody could get that wide open. All you have to do is catch the ball once you're wide open and you score a touchdown. But they just want to make Devontae Adams' numbers look great so people think he's great. So overrated. The Vikings look like a team from Miami in the cold, not like they're from Minnesota, which is kind of weird. And honestly, that entire Vikings Packers game was just gross to watch. Like every part of it, there was not any part of it I enjoyed. I didn't even remember that they actually won that game until the end of it, but they did. The Vikings managed to win that one somehow. I like Chad Beebe for obvious reasons, as you know, a Bills fan. Adam Thielen catches are really impressive. And
Mhm.
then the thing I have to say about Justin Jefferson that doesn't make any sense is that when I'm watching him like from college, like the issue was that he just like compared to like every other guy that was like highly regarded in the draft, it was like he could not separate at all in college. And I don't know
Oh,
what
especially
changed him, but it's literally like he's the exact opposite of what he was in college because now he's always wide open. And the other thing I have to say that I underestimated that didn't seem like it was there as much is his speed. He also seems like he's so much faster in the NFL.
yeah, I was just gonna butt in like even when you look at the guy that he was playing alongside with at LSU and Jamar Chase, it's like, geez, the other guy isn't the one that's going to go in the first round in this draft. When you're watching, it's like, oh, this guy still has to wait another year. It
Yeah.
was just like I wasn't as high on him either, but just you did a lot of bashing of him, and still got taken with the Bills pick. So
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
the guy you always hate going in the draft has to go with the Bills pick.
Yes. Precisely. Harrison Smith is absolutely amazing, though, secondary presence wise. I mean, he makes plays that not a lot of people do in general. I'm a big fan of their young corners in Dantzler and Jeff Gladney. Gladney started playing better the further into the season they got, which was good to see. Dalvin Cook doesn't wow me with any of his moves really that he makes in the open field, but he's really good at identifying where open holes are and exploiting them. And then week 14, you know what's really weird to think about in week 14? Week 14, the 6-6 Vikings went to play the 7-5 Buccaneers. Just think about that for a second. It's weird to look back at stuff sometimes. Um, and then I just said, I swear in all these Vikings games, there's so many plays that should have been called for illegal motion that the refs didn't throw flags on that it's just that's something that actually needs to get called because you got way too many guys running towards the line of scrimmage that shouldn't be able to in the NFL. That needs to probably be looked at in officiating because it's kind of cheap. Um, this was kind of a team that just had all sorts of disasters. To be honest, last season like I said with the Packers game, there was a lot of gross stuff going on for this team as a whole. Dalvin Cook is now in multiple games that I watched, just came to a complete stop in the middle of a play, like just halted his body and stood like basically straight up and down, like he's asking for his knees to get destroyed or something. So stop doing that if you want to have a career in the NFL. And then, like I said, Gladney looked better deeper in the season. They got Dan Bailey, like actually basically tried to lose the game by himself against the Buccaneers, so that was cool. Maybe they would have only lost by a field goal or something in the end if he had made like most of his kicks, but he missed like everything. Then last thing I just said is, wow, Alexander Madison put an absolutely insane move on week 17 against Detroit and used his blocker really well.
Mm-hmm. My notes, just Adam Thielen is so great. He is just so good. Watching him, one of the more underappreciated, I'm not going to call him underrated because I think everyone knows that Adam Thielen is good, but he's very underappreciated with some of the stuff that he does every week. Uh, like Justin Jefferson and him had like the same amount of catch numbers, but Justin Jefferson, same thing with the speed that you said. He's doing a lot after the catch that you just didn't see him do in college, which was insane for me to watch because I didn't follow like the Vikings very closely. I knew he was putting up numbers, but just seeing the moves he's putting on guys while running routes and getting more yards after catch was great for that. Dan Bailey just stunk. He was so bad. Dan Bailey stunk, man. And I remember watching that Vikings Bucks game. He was so bad. Just, I was laughing. Just, how are you missing this? And there was one kick, I think it was like inside the 30, and the commentators were just like, Buccaneers shouldn't have given up that much yardage. And I'm like, he's going to miss it. It doesn't matter. He's going to miss it. He was on such a cold streak to end the season, and I don't think he's going to be able to find another job now.
No.
Their pass rush was not very productive in sack totals. Like, the most productive guy was Yannick Ngakoue, and he played 6 games. That's just, like, sad. And then they shipped him out. So, I mean, it's just really, really bad. And then I did like to see what they were doing with their kick returning. They were throwing some different guys back there, trying to get some different production, see what was going on. Punt returning was god-awful. It was no one had like triple digits in return yards. It was like less than 40 for both of them. It was so bad.
Yeah. Nobody feels the need to want to have any sort of a return game anymore, apparently.
No. Why have anyone dynamic back there to return when you could just have someone fair catch it every single time?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Stats wise for me, I got our Kirk Cousins stats here. We got 4,200 yards, 35 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and just under 68% completion percentage. It's interesting. I just think that if we got a guy that was more dynamic at the quarterback position for this team would be scary. Because I just feel like you're kind of capping yourself out with Kirk Cousins, and we talked about that before. Dalvin Cook had 1557 on the ground, and he had 17 touchdowns, total touchdowns in only 14 games. That's pretty good. Jefferson, 88 catches, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's amazing for a rookie. Thielen, 74 catches, 925 yards. And since everybody thought Jefferson was the main target, they managed to throw him the ball for 14 touchdown receptions. Then Irv Smith, have to mention him because he's going to be the number 1 tight end now. He had 30 catches, 365 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which honestly, for a backup tight end, is like not bad at all. Like you said, return game kind of weak. And then, you know what's even worse about the Dan Bailey being 68.2% on the season? Is the fact that this team has to play at least 9 dome games.
Mm-hmm.
They play at least 9 dome games each year. That's awful. 5 interceptions for Harrison Smith and 10 passes defended is great. 3 interceptions, 122 tackles, and 8 tackles for loss for Eric Wilson. Eric Wilson, not a name that I can even say I would have came up with before looking at this team, but stat-wise, he showed up big time for him. Then Eric Kendricks, another one of their linebackers, also had 3 3 interceptions and 104 tackles. And like you said, Ngakoue was the only guy who was productive on the defensive line, basically. And Jeff Gladney somehow had 7 tackles for loss at corner. I thought that was interesting. He was one of the corners I really liked last year, and that's why I'm hyping him up, saying he got better towards the end of the season. But I just thought it was interesting. 7 tackles for loss at corner. That's pretty wild. And then what happened to the D line from a few years ago that just felt like unstoppable? But it feels like with what they did this offseason, that D line may get back to form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You covered everything that I had statistically, and I also chucked out stats and stuff when I went over what I wanted to talk about. So we could just move on to free agency now.
Yeah. So I forgot to take a look at their trades. Was there any trades that they made that were
I
important?
don't believe so.
Was
I didn't see anything.
Ngakoue traded? Or was he?
Ngakoue was traded during the season.
Okay.
For I think he was traded for one of their 3rd or 4th round picks that they used this year.
Okay. Yeah. So, acquisitions wise, I have Dalvin Tomlinson, Patrick Peterson, Xavier Woods, Mackenzie Alexander, and Nick Vigil. This feels basically like perfect with what they needed to do. They lacked defensive line production. They get Dalvin Tomlinson. They didn't really have a veteran at the cornerback position, so I like Pat Pete because the entire corner room was basically really young, and honestly, besides Dantzler and Gladney, there wasn't a third guy in there I really like, so it's good to usually have at least 3 corners. Anthony Harris left, so replacing him with Xavier Woods, probably a downgrade there, but at least they did make sure to get a replacement. And then even they grabbed a 4th corner here in Mackenzie Alexander, who's not going to be too bad, so he'll still be able to step in there if any of those other 3 guys aren't playing well. And Nick Vigil at the linebacker position kind of just gives them a backup that they can have in there because they didn't really have much depth at the position.
Mm-hmm. The only other name that I have that you didn't say was Stephen Weatherly. He's coming back for another stint in Minnesota, just adding more beef to their D-line, so which is something they definitely need. They need more guys, more bodies in that room.
Yeah. Losses wise, I already mentioned Anthony Harris is gone, but also Kyle Rudolph, Mike Boone, Riley Reif, and Dan Bailey ? I don't think Dan Bailey's much of a loss with how he played last year.
No.
But they addressed Riley Reif in the 1st round, so that seems good. Mike Boone barely, even though he played well 2 years ago, he barely stepped on the field this past season, so I can understand why they didn't want to pay him. The real only loss here that I'm even basically the only position on the roster right now, after going through everything for their team that I'm even questioning, is the tight end position, but they've got a young guy there, so I think they've got a shot there.
Yeah, trying to go through my list, just to say if you've said this name, Mike Hughes signed somewhere else, Eric Wilson signed somewhere else, Anthony Harris signed somewhere else.
Eric Wilson actually left?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I missed that one. Okay, well, yeah, never mind.
So Nick Vigil's a starter now.
Oh, jeez. Okay, well that downgrades my prediction slightly. That may actually drop him a game that I didn't have them dropping before.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact team he signed with, but I saw that he signed somewhere else. Kyle Rudolph signed with the Giants, and then one of the other guys that was productive on their D line in Ifedi Odenigbo, he signed somewhere else as well. So they lost Yannick Ngakoue during the season in a trade. And now the guy that was right below him in production signed somewhere else too. So they got to hope that these rookies that they drafted and these guys that they brought in free agency produce from the jump.
I know what you mean, but like if the second guy,
I know it's not. It's not a lot that you have to fill in. I get that, but it's just you got to hope that you get. But you got to hope that you get better production than I think he had like 4. And no, Yannick had 5 sacks, and he led the team with that, like 3.5. You got to hope that like the next number 2, whatever, has that. Yeah, which isn't really impossible.
What I'm saying is like if the second guy is already terrible, it's not like it's like, oh geez, we need to maintain him to maintain the status quo. It's like the status quo is already awful, so why do we even need to worry about keeping him around?
Yeah.
I get what they did there. Draft wise, I think they killed it. I think they absolutely slaughtered this draft.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So 1st round, Christian Darrisaw. I got this pick right. Yay. but also I think he's decent. He wasn't like one of my favorite tackles, but I mean I think he's fine, and a lot of people had him pretty high, so I'm fine with that pick because it felt like a position in need for them. Then Kellen Mond, I think he's great at reading defenses coming from a smart school, smart school that Johnny Manziel came out of. I don't know. I don't know. It was just funny to think about that. When I wrote that, I was like, it is a good school, but like Johnny Manziel came out of there, so maybe I should be questioning it. But he's solid athletic ability, and really that's the thing that if he ever steps in the game, maybe a big difference between him and Kirk Cousins that adds an extra element to the offense. I was actually surprised to see how much Kirk actually was willing to take off, but I mean, you've got a guy in Kirk that maybe is kind of trying to be athletic as opposed to a guy like Kellen Mond who actually does have athleticism. That's interesting. And then the next pick really shows how unconfident they are in Kirk because they're drafting a defensive player that is also playing quarterback. Yeah, and the funny thing is that they actually drafted two people in this draft that played like multiple positions in college, which is just weird. But he's a football player. That's what I can say about Chaz Surratt.
He's a football player.
He likes to tackle. I just don't know if he has too many skills that I get really super excited about. But he seems like he's got the right mindset, to say the least. So that's like the first pick that I'll say I question. Wyatt Davis, I think he's a solid guard. I thought he looked good from the Ohio State University. So that's an interior guy after grabbing an tackle already earlier. So I'm happy with that pick on the offensive line front. Then this is where their picks really start getting good with Patrick Jones II. Oh my gosh, a Pitt defensive lineman, that's enough for me. He's vicious. I mean, the whole Pitt defense will like completely overrun plays, but they go so hard and fast. It's like you're never going to hear me knocking anybody for picking a Pitt defender. I mean, I feel like we looked at like, I don't know, at least it had to be at least like 7 starting defensive players for Pitt, and I didn't have like bad things to say about almost any of them. So yeah, I'm not going to knock them for that. I love that pick. I mean, you want to have a force up front, start picking those guys. Kene Nwangwu, he's a running back. The only thing you see, I just wrote something stupid here because I was like, I can't really like think of what to say, so I just wrote, he quick, he's slick, but most importantly, he ain't too thick. So that's what I got for him. He's kind of just like a standard running back that doesn't feel too terribly special. Cameron Bynum is a corner from Cal that I'm not too impressed by, but he's playing safety though, which does make sense considering the fact that they lost a safety this offseason, so I like that. Now, then I kind of realized once we were talking about Janarius Robinson, FSU players are like kind of like Pitt players. Not at that same level, but like also FSU players, it feels like we've watched like 5 or 6 of them for the defensive side of the ball that have been like pretty impressive as well. So, gotta say some good stuff about that. But, he flies to the ball, and he plays hard at the edge. He's awesome. He also blocked 3 field goals in one game. That was really impressive. So yeah. Then the next guy they pick, their obligation to take a receiver in Emir Smith-Marset. He looks really good too. He looks really good. He'll play, and he's super fast, and this team is really looking to be good in 2021 based off all these guys they picked. He also had a kick return touchdown in college, which means that he's like way more likely to be successful in the NFL, and no one can beat him to like the corner or the pylon. He's going to be great to have like running underneath routes and stuff, but I mean, this size speed combo, 6'1", 180, I feel like is like kind of almost the perfect build nowadays, that we have like slightly smaller linebackers, we can get slightly smaller receivers, but he's still got some height to him. I feel like he's going to be good for them as well. Then we've got the other guy they picked, that's like a combo, which makes no sense. Zach Davidson is a tight end and a punter. That's strange, but he's an athletic big body and kind of matches the style of Irv Smith. So if they want to get like backups that match their starters, it kind of makes sense. Because athletic, tall, but not too big. And then last guy they pick, another Pitt defender, interior defensive lineman, Jalen Twyman. Can't knock that at all. And then UDFAs, they actually even have 3 UDFAs that I want to mention, which is Turner Bernard is a long snapper that they picked up, Riley Patterson at kicker, and they got Blake Prohl at wide receiver. Yeah, another offspring of Ricky Prohl.
Those Pro Boys are going to take over the NFL.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Austin Pro last played in the XFL, but, he's probably somewhere.
He's somewhere. He's doing something.
Yeah, going through the drift for me. Christian Darrisaw, I had him ranked as number 4 tackle, and I think the number 4 offensive lineman straight up. He's really good. I mean, after you get through those first 3 tackles of Sewell, Slater, and Jenkins, I mean, he's right there. And I think it was a great pick. I really like him as a tackle, and they needed him to fill in for Riley Reiff. I think it's kind of an instant upgrade over Riley Reiff, because Riley Reiff's really just mediocre, and you're getting a guy that's going to come in at mediocre and then hope that he gets better than that. Kellen Mond. Boy, do I love him. I love Kellen Mond. Big Kellen Mond fan, so I'm going to be rooting every week of the season that he gets thrown in the game at starter. Had him ranked as my number 5 QB. I just really like what he brings to the table athletically. His mechanics are a little rough, but that's what you have NFL coaches for. Work on that, help him grow, get smoother mechanics, but he is just so athletic, so fast. Maybe they could have some packages where they just bring him in to run quarterback power, because that dude is a house call machine when he runs it straight up the middle. I love that. And then Ches Surratt. I mean, you were a little bit higher on him than I was, but he's a football player. I said a little bit higher. You didn't have him like ranked number 3 or anything for linebackers. You just had him in your top 10, I think, and I had him like just outside my top 20. He's a football player, that's for sure. He's a good tackler, but just he kind of lacks really some instincts that you want from a linebacker, and just kinetic motion, to use a big word there to sound like I'm smart. But that's just going to come with more time playing the position. He's also really old for a rookie. I think he's 24. So, I mean, not the best pick there, but you need a linebacker. You need more linebacker depth. Why not take Chester? I think if you think he's the best on the board there, take him. Wyatt Davis, he was my number 2 guard. He is very, very good. He can probably be an instant starter for them right away, for the interior of their offensive line. He's very solid. And then Patrick Jones, just Pitt guys, man. Nothing like him. Nothing like Pitt guys. Dude's a mauler. I can't wait to just... This is what's great about looking at the draft, because I'm going to be like a Pitt fan for life now, just seeing these guys come out and just kill people.
Literally
Patrick Jones
ready to take everybody's heads off. And like I said, they're like half the time they're like completely overrunning plays, but it's like, dude, they're playing like so fast and like recklessly. It's amazing.
Yeah. Kene Nwangu, he's gonna fill in for Mike Boone. He's gonna be like a special teams kind of running back. Maybe he can carve himself a role to get carries in the offense. It's just, but like you said, he ain't thick. So I don't know. It's a weird pick, especially in the 4th round for a running back there. That's going to be like your 3rd running back.
Yeah.
Possibly move into your backup when Madison moves on after this season or whenever his contract expires. Cameron Bynum was a weird pick for me because, like you said, I liked that they brought these vets in at corner. Or Vet and Pat Pete to help the young guys, because that room is full of young guys. I didn't really think you needed to bring in another young corner, because I don't know
he is
how...
playing safety.
Oh, he's playing safety?
Yeah.
Still, like, it's gonna be hard for him to carve a role for himself in that with the
Yeah,
older guys in
they're
the secondary, especially with how good Harrison Smith is, and now
especially
bringing
with
in
how
Xavier Woods.
deep the safety position was in this draft, and you drafted
Hmm.
a corner to play safety that wasn't an
Yeah,
impressive corner when there were plenty of impressive safeties that were still on the board.
yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Just a little confusing. I don't know. Maybe they got a plan for him. Janarius Robinson, he's really good too. I liked what I saw from him. I say mauler all the time for edge rushers, but dude goes out there trying to just dominate the guy across from him, and you love to see that, especially a guy that's going to be taken in the mid rounds. Amir Smith Marset, dude is so fast. I hope they have him back there to return kicks and punts because he is so electric, and you need that when you have two guys not even like averaging 45 yards each on punt return. You need to do something. So have a young guy that's going to take some risks and not call fair catches every time, please. But I love him. I love him as a receiver on his own. He's so solid. Just like you said, no one's going to beat him to the pylon. Zach Davidson, I did like that he was a punter. I don't know how I did not see him at all during the pre-draft eval. I mean, tight end that can also punt for you. Maybe they work on him, get him to kick some field goals too. You save a roster spot right there. Got a tight end that's also your kicker. But he's great too. He's got a build similar to Irv Smith, like you said. So you're not really getting too much drop off because I think with Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith, there was really kind of a different body type between tight end one and tight end two there, and two things that they were very different at. And that's fine, but I think you kind of want, at least in the modern NFL, you want a guy like Irv Smith to be your tight end one, and then a guy like Kyle Rudolph to be your tight end two or three. Guy that's a solid blocker, and he's got soft hands and can make catches in the red zone. But uh, if you're bringing in guys that similar body types for one and two. Love Zach Davidson.
I wouldn't say that I'd want it to be one way or another, like either way. I would just say that I would get annoyed if I like as a coach, I don't feel like I would be calling plays thinking about like how tired one guy is and then one guy gets subbed out or whatnot. And then I'm like, well, I thought the other guy was going to be in there, and now play calling issues happen. So as a coach or like from a team building perspective, I wouldn't say that I'd prioritize one over the other. I'd just say that I'd like my tight end room to be like fairly similar. I don't want like one guy who's just a blocker, one guy who's just a possession guy, and one guy who's like a vertical or speedy threat. Like that would just be really annoying to try to figure that out.
Yeah, and you're kind of getting the best of like all three worlds with Zach Davidson and Irv Smith. So just trying to round out the position there for them, which I like. Irv Smith looks like he's going to be a solid tight end, and have Zach Davidson develop behind him, even better. And then Jalen Twyman, come on, Pitt. Just if you're just gonna throw a dart at a board for your last pick in the draft, just have it be the rest of the pick guys that on that dartboard, just whoever hits him, man, because you're getting a solid guy, whoever it is, but especially a defensive tackle. Sure up that offensive line even more. I saw something where the Vikings
line.
Defensive line.
Okay, just making
But
sure they weren't moving him.
no. The I saw something that the Vikings have like the largest in weight defensive line in the NFL. Like their defensive line averages like 300 something pounds across the guys that start on. I'm like, that's pretty funny.
Nice. I like it. I like it a lot. All right. So for the schedule, I'll go through first. The over under for this team is 9, and I actually just dropped them a game because of the fact that they lost Eric Wilson, which may or may not be fair, but I actually do think that linebacker room is weaker without him. Oh, jeez. Maybe somebody will be able to fill in, but losing him and a safety, that may be harder than I thought. They're making the D-line a bit better, but I think this team definitely improved this offseason. That's the thing I'll start with. Week 1 at Cincinnati, I think that's a W. Week 2 at Arizona, I also think that's a W. So this is the second time that we've had teams go on the road twice to start, and I've said WW out of the gate. So that's nice to come home to your week 3
Yeah,
first
but this
home
is
game and
different
go.
than Dallas. But their home game is different than Dallas's home game after 2 away.
Yeah, it's Seattle, who I'm not crazy about at this point, so I'm gonna give them a W against Seattle.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
then week 4 they go to Cleveland. Cleveland's kind of got the roster that's Cleveland's kind of like them in that they've got a all around pretty well built team now, but Cleveland's even on another level than them. Not directly at every position, but just overall, I think the roster's more talented. That's an L to Cleveland. Week 5 versus Detroit, I think that's an easy W. Week 6 against Carolina, I think that's another fairly easy W, and they head into the bye week at 5-1, which is pretty good, but then this schedule starts to get a little more challenging. They play on Halloween against the Cowboys. They're the home team off the bye. That feels like a game that they should be able to win. Their team is more balanced than Dallas, even though Dallas will be able to put up points no matter who they play. Their team's more balanced. Then the next week they go to Baltimore. That's harder. This game kind of almost felt like a toss-up, but in Baltimore, I feel like that's just a loss. Then we looked at the Chargers fairly recently, and now that we've looked at both the Vikings and the Chargers, now I'm willing to say that I think that the Vikings can go to LA and win this one because I'm less confident in this Chargers team than I was before. Like I said, Herbert can be the answer to all the issues, but if he's not, then I think the Vikings have a better team. Week 11 against Green Bay, I mean, this is up to whether or not Rodgers is on the field or not. But what I
And we've
really
said that
think,
every single game a team has to play Green
what I
Bay.
really think here is that even if he's on the field, I feel like the Vikings are good enough now that they can split these games if he's on the team. So I'll give them the win here either way because this is their home game against Green Bay. But I could definitely see them taking, I think no matter what, they'll take at least one of these games. And maybe 2, even if Rodgers is still there and it's a mess there, or most likely 2 if Rodgers isn't there. Then they go to San Francisco. San Francisco is another team that's just really well built all around, and I'm just favoring San Francisco because they're the home team in that matchup, so that's an L there. Detroit, again, I think their team is much better than Detroit. I think that's a W. Pittsburgh's on Thursday night. That'll be an interesting game to watch, see where those teams are sitting at that point in the season, December 9th. But I think Pittsburgh's going to be worse. I don't love their roster too much. Their defense is still solid, but the offense, I feel like, is questionable playing with that old of a QB that really hasn't tried to do much to keep his body together up until the last few years. So W against Pittsburgh. Then this is where they get absolutely screwed. These last 4 weeks are just miserable for them. I mean, talk about how I think this is going to play out. They get screwed in the fact that by this point, I'm almost feeling like it's guaranteed Justin Fields is the starter for the Bears. And of course, they draw the Bears twice at the tail end of the season, which means at Chicago week 15, I feel like is an L. Then week 16, they've got the Los Angeles Rams. They're the home team in this, so maybe I should have called this a toss-up game, but really, yeah, maybe I should have called it a toss-up game, because that's actually closer than, now that I reanalyze it, that's closer than I think, but I gave them the L initially, so let's just leave it for now. And then Green Bay, since I gave them the first win, and as far as we know now, Rodgers is still going to be on the team, L for the second one. And like I said, I think Chicago is going to be really talented with Justin Fields, so that's an L there too. But that's a 10-7 record for me, and I think it could be higher than that. They kind of just need to get the cards to fall in their favor really here, because all the games I gave them W's in, I feel like are definitely attainable games to win, and even a decent amount of the games that I gave them losses in, I'm not necessarily sure about it because, say, Rodgers is gone. That throws a win in their favor. Andy Dalton stays on the field for the whole season for the Bears. I'd give them 2 more games for that. There's just a few things that if they go their way, or say the Rams, Browns, or Ravens have a bad week, this team could be looking actually at sitting fairly decently like in a wild card spot or something like that. So I'm actually pretty excited to see what this team does, but I only went 10-7, which is just above the over at 9, so I'm not feeling too strongly about betting on that.
Okay, well, you and I kind of have a big disagreement here. This isn't just me being a Kirk Cousins hater, all right? Their team as a whole is very young, and their team last season showed that it can be productive. It can put up numbers, I should say. Their team can put up numbers. Whether that leads to wins, that's a different question. I'm gonna get a lot of hate from the Vikings fans that watch this, and maybe from you. I know that you're going to try to argue with me on this at the end, but let me just try to explain my thought process here. Also, for the Vikings fans too, because I know you get this. My games, the other predictions that I've made, they all link up. Hayden's doesn't. He's very inconsistent. He makes no sense. I'm pretty sure in the Chargers episode, he said that the Chargers would win against the Vikings.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Because I hadn't watched the Vikings yet. I hadn't seen what the Vikings roster was.
Inconsistency. I will, when we're done with all this, I will take in all the information I have, and I will reevaluate my schedule as a whole. But right now, this is what it is.
Hang on. One thing. I'm much more worried about... I enjoy theoretical arguing much more than this, because, like, theoretical you can't really prove. This, we will eventually see what they do. So, I'm hoping that you say, like, 4-13 right now, because this team is not going 4-13 this season.
Okay. Week 1 at Cincinnati. I think the Vikings are the better team there. They win at Cincinnati. Week 2 at Arizona. That's going to be a tough one, because Arizona and the Vikings are two very similarly matched teams. I gave Arizona the edge here because they're the home team. That's an L. Seattle at home. I just think Seattle's a better team. I know Seattle isn't going to be as good as they were last season. I think they're a better team than the Vikings, so that's an L. Cleveland, I don't think you and I can really disagree on that. That's an L. Cleveland's just a better built team, better team right now. Home against Detroit. That's a W. At Carolina, another team very similar to the Vikings in both defenses, young and good. Offenses, though, I mean, the Vikings has proved to put up numbers. Vikings hasn't proved to win games, though. I understand Dan Bailey has held that team back. See, if I gave toss-ups, I'd give this one a toss-up here. But I don't give toss-ups. I pick straight up. And usually the defining factor in picking straight up is whoever the home team is. Is that stupid most of the time? Yeah, I agree that is stupid. But I need to make a choice. I need to put a W or an L in the column. So I put an L here for the Vikings.
I actually didn't do any toss-ups for this schedule. I don't know why.
I know you didn't. I'm proud of you.
I didn't feel like... Like I said, maybe one game.
They get an L against Carolina. Then they go there in their bye week. They have 2 wins. Going in their bye week, 2 wins. They come out against Dallas. Dak Prescott's the better quarterback. That's what gets Dallas the win. At Baltimore, Baltimore's just a better team. You can't argue that. At Los Angeles, you can argue which team's the better team here. I think Los Angeles is the better team. After seeing what they did, Justin Herbert looks like the better quarterback, and that's just going to give them most of the edge. And LA kind of has a more solid defense than they do. So I give the Chargers the dub. Home against Green Bay. If they have Rodgers, it's not even a competition. The Green Bay wins. At San Fran's just a better team. That's an L. At Detroit, I split their games with Detroit. I think they're going to lose a game to Detroit. Division games are rough, man. Division games are rough. Dan Campbell's going to come out here trying to bite some kneecaps off. He's going to skull. Dan Campbell's going to skull. Then, like you said, Thursday night, Pittsburgh. I agree with you. That's a dub. They're going to dub against the Steelers. At Chicago, Justin Fields is going to be the quarterback at this point, like you said. And I agree with you. These last 4 weeks are rough for them. If I am completely wrong about what my prediction is for them, these last 4 weeks might be make or break for them to get into the playoffs, and they might not be able to do it just because of the the barricade that is these last 4 weeks.
I like it, the barricade, because they got 2 Bears games in there.
Mm-hmm.
You're really thinking.
Starts and ends with a Bears game. But at Chicago, that's an L. Just Justin Fields is such a more talented quarterback, and just he can bring such a dynamic to an offense.
You've only mentioned quarterbacks so far. Like, I'm cool with talking about quarterbacks. They're significant. And yes, I think Justin Fields makes Chicago a lot better team. But you have to mention that Chicago, just in general, is a very good team that's lacking just a quarterback.
Chicago is a very good team. The Vikings team, if I had to pick like a very average team in the NFL, it would be the Vikings. But the Vikings they put numbers up. And that's really tough when you put numbers up, but you get no production in the win column for it. It's really tough to try to pick that apart. Home against the Rams just are so good. They're loaded. They're loaded. Robert Wood said it. They're loaded. So I'm waiting as soon as Justin Jefferson says that the Vikings are loaded, I will flip my record for them. I need that confidence in that building. But the Rams game, that's an L at home. At Green Bay, I think that's an L. And then week 17 against Chicago, my thinking here was Chicago's made it into the playoffs.
Week 18?
Yeah, week 18, geez, sorry. My thinking here, Chicago's already made it into the playoffs, and they got Nick Foles or Andy Dalton there at quarterback to give Justin Fields a rest here. And the Vikings pick up a win. So did you keep track of all the wins that I gave them?
Well, I said 4-13, so I'm guessing
you would be correct. You would be correct. That is the record that I am predicting for the Minnesota Vikings as of now. It's 4-13.
They've got 2 games against Detroit. They've got a game
against... Yeah, splitting them.
They've got a game against Carolina.
Yeah, and they're losing that. I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong about everything.
Game against Cincinnati.
They're winning that.
Another game besides those 4. I know those aren't the 4 you picked, but those are the 4 I'll pick out immediately and say they're not going to win a single other game besides those 4.
Whoa, why are you saying that, man? Why are you saying that?
Because that's not what I said. But you said they're going to have 4 wins, and I need to point out that the only, if you want to just talk about talent of opposing roster, 2 games against Detroit, a game against Carolina, a game against Cincinnati.
We'll see. I have no doubt the Vikings will have guys that are competing for awards at the end of the season, Offensive Player of the Year, MVP, and stuff like that because of the numbers. But it's going to be hard to give guys awards like that when you aren't getting wins.
I don't think the defense is going to be that bad.
I don't think the defense is going to be that bad either. But if your offense isn't really Kirk Cousins is just not enticing to me, man.
Man.
He's going to be the thing that holds that team back.
Twitter's got you going crazy here, buddy. 4 wins. 4 wins. It's not even a 16-game schedule anymore. 4 wins.
Mm-hmm. Like I said at the start of this, I reserve to change everything once I evaluate all 32 teams, and I can go back. I'll do that for every single team, not just the Vikings. So it's not like I'm covering my butt in that. I've said that almost every episode that I'm reserving the right to go back and evaluate after I look over all 32 teams because I'm having the records match up across the league.
Well, I like keeping my record predictions.
Hey, man, we all can't give toss-up games.
Yeah, but I still give a straight-up number of wins at the end.
Yeah, but it doesn't match up league-wide. It's going to be hard for every single team to have the record that you have when it's impossible for every team to have that record.
Well, I know that I'm going to get at least some wrong. If I got all
Not this one.
If I got all
Not this one.
272 of them correct, I would be amazed. All right, are you all set?
Yeah, we can cut this here.